I'm here at IBC 2016, and the topic is interop, and it's particularly on IP and IP interfaces and those types of things. And there is a little bit of confusion what's going on. And I have three people that are really into this stuff pretty heavily. I've got Rich here, and he looks after the VSF besides his day job at Fox. And Brad's here, and you're really into, I won't even cover everything you're into, but it's quite a fair bit, as well as Mike, who's obviously from Grass, but looks after Ames. And with regards to that, at the IBC Interop Zone, we work together a lot, IABM and Ames, in helping bring this session here. But can you just talk a little bit about what was at the show and describing it?
Sure, and I just kind of roll back a little bit too. Last year at IBC, there was a lot of confusion and the risk of fragmentation in the industry in terms of multiple proposals for standards were out there. But thanks to the good work of AMWA, which Brad is involved with, and VSF, which both of these guys are involved with, there was beginning to form, and the JTNM, so the Joint Task Force of Network Media, a real roadmap for the future that was being formed. And so we've been able, with Ames and all these organizations working together, and then as you mentioned, to bring it to IBC with the IBM and Ames. So we have the AES, AMWA, EBU, VSF, and SMPTE, all those standards organizations were able to showcase that technology and the roadmap that they've put together. And I would say that the fragmentation that could have been is not, and all the major vendors are together. We had over 30 people operating together in that IBC Interoperability Zone, as well as showing some of that technology being used in live broadcast for IBC TV, thankfully to the VRT EBU Live IP program.
Right, that's great. Now I'm going to go over to Rich here for a second, and let's just talk about IP transport for a minute. VSF was very heavily involved in doing the technical recommendations, TR03 and 04, and what really got that going?
Well, the video services forum has been around for a number of years. It started in the Bell company era in the United States, always doing transmission for video purposes back in the analog days, and we've moved along a few decades, and the decision was made. It was time to sort of become modernized and get into the IP arena. Obviously, that was the future. It was coming, and we felt we had to get there. The power of IP was just so alluring we frankly couldn't ignore it. And so a lot of work started about 4 or 5 years ago with the 2022 series of specifications that SMPTE has standardized. That fundamental initial work came out of the MPEG.
Oh, right.
It's horrible.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, it came out of MPEG, and then the VSF took that over, and we've gotten up to 2022-6, 22-7 at the moment, and then we decided to branch off and to do a more native mapping, because those are mappings of SDI, but we decided it was time to become more efficient. We wanted native mapping, which is where TR3 came from. So each of the there's a great demo in the Interop booth that sort of explained this, I guess, like you did, where you sort of said, well, it used to be we had one envelope, and the captioning and the audio and the video and all the metadata were in there, and you just sort of moved it. TR03 gives us what I think is a huge advantage in that you move each of the individual pieces independently so that you can mix and match as necessary, add languages, subtract languages, add data, take away data. And you're not limited anymore by what will fit in an SDI package, so that's huge.
Total flexibility. And Brad, speaking of flexibility, I think one of the things that's a little misunderstood or forgotten about IP is ultimately it goes both ways. So really, you need a whole discovery mechanism that you've heavily worked on that. Can you talk a little bit?
Sure. I think as we go through this transition, there are fundamental workflows that we still need to support. And let's say that someone pulls a camera out of a truck and they want to hook it up to a monitor. Very, very common use case. In the SDI world, if that's an SDI camera and you've got a little workbench router sitting there, you plug the camera in, you pull out the monitor's already hooked up, and you push the control panel button and the camera's in the monitor. we face a number of challenges moving to IP, and just one of them is you've got the camera now, and it's got an Ethernet connector on it. You plug that into an IP router. You take the monitor with an Ethernet connector on it, you plug it into an IP router, and you go, how do I get this to there? And a lot of the work that the AMWA has been involved in has to do with discovery and registration, where I plug that camera in, it's discovered, I plug the monitor in, it's discovered, and then connection management, saying I want to connect that camera to that monitor. It goes beyond that, but that opens up a discussion about, well, what are the fundamental things that are really different as we move into this new world compared to an SDI world? And what do we need to put in place that we all do the same as a community, or think about the same from the user standpoint, so that then manufacturers can innovate on top of that? And the joint task force effort that Mike referred to earlier set out to identify those things, and we came up with 4 critical things. One of them was identity. There's timing, of course. We have to know what time things were created and be able to time align them. There's discovery and registration, and connection management, which are the last 2 things that I started talking about. So the plan is, and quite a bit of what's being shown, it has to do with those frameworks, getting those frameworks up and running, as Mike alluded to, getting everybody with the same approach to how we do those, rather than have, because the internet's kind of like broadcast standards. Pick a standard that you'd like to implement and you're good, because there's a whole menu of them. As an industry, if we coalesce around particular approaches and don't go off in different directions, that establishes a base upon which then manufacturers can hire the smartest people and do their best work. But without that initially, you got a long uphill battle.
Yes. Now, from the vendor point of view, Mike, people are SDI now, they're looking at IP. I'm talking IP within a facility here now. Okay. Remember, not just play out IP. I think that's one of the confusions that does happen, but let's talk about that. But from a vendor point of view, you have obviously some product to support that. Do people need to be 100% IP? Will there be hybrid?
I think there's definitely going to be hybrid. I mean, and this is just going back to how the business has worked before, and thinking about the capital cycles that probably most of a vendor like Grass Valley or Imagine or a lot of their customers have, right? There are greenfield opportunities where you could, and opportunities to go full IP, and there's some of those that are happening. But a lot of times you have a certain budget and you can't just throw everything out and rebuild. And so there'll be SDI will be around for a long, long time. And we have to have products that facilitate that and allow you to migrate at a place and at a cost that doesn't burden you too much. And I think as you walk the show floor at IBC, you see a lot of that. So I can have an IP input, I can have an SDI input. I think IP brings a huge promise for other functions. What Brad mentioned, registration and discovery, we don't have a way to do that in SDI. There's higher level functions, virtualization, other things that IP enables. So it is really the future, and there's why there's a real push for it. But the business reality is you don't throw away what you have today, you migrate. And we saw that, somewhat analogous to say like the SD to HD transition. That happened over a number of years. And so my view would be kind of the same thing.
So Rich, from an end user point of view,
he actually knows.
From an end user point of view, should people be waiting, or should they be jumping in now, or how does that?
Look, I appreciate every business has a different economic cycle and different abilities to fund things, but my view is everybody should be playing with this now. And some people like Fox have an advantage, greater scale, we can do more. But I would encourage anybody who's in the space to do a small proof of concept. Go do something. Go get an Amazon AWS account, right? You can sign up for one with a credit card on the internet. And just experiment with cloud. Go experiment with some other products. If you can do more than that, great. A number of vendors, Ames and otherwise, will be happy, I'm sure, to do proof of concepts with you. You mentioned playout, but other things as well. There's so many ways you can get your feet wet at the moment and learn about this technology, and I think it's really crucial. been a number of these panels, these discussions, and people are always talking about, well, it's format independent. You can have 8K, you can have 4K, you can do whatever you want with it. You're sort of future-proofing yourself. It gives you all kinds of flexibility to do things that you can't do today. But in my mind, quite honestly, the single most important thing it allows broadcasters to do is it's going to allow broadcasters to compete in a world that's surrounding us at the moment, and we're grappling with and trying to deal with. We have to use the same technology our new competitors are using. You see all these digital MVPDs developing, or lightweight MVPDs developing. Do the obvious. You have Netflix, you have Amazon, you have Google, YouTube, all these companies using this technology, and they have great flexibility and the ability to change their business relatively quickly. And we need to be able to do the same thing.
And yeah, go ahead.
Tag on to
Yeah,
that,
go ahead, Brad.
because I think that's perhaps one of the most important things, and I think being able to do an SDI to IP replacement we know that it's a fundamental requirement, but it's not really the key point here. And within the VSF, we had a panel at one point, and we asked the question, well, how much money did you save going to IP right now? And the answer was, oh, actually, we didn't save money. It was a setup question, right? The actual point, the answer was, we actually can't be in business today. We cannot do the things that our board and our investors demand of us in just a pure SDI infrastructure. But in the future, it gives us the ability to have jobs that we need to do and have capabilities that are latent in our infrastructure waiting to be consumed, have those capabilities come up and spin up and be exposed, use them, and have that diffuse back down into the platform where they're used somewhere else. And basically the way we do this and the way we've done discovery and registration is we leverage internet technologies. And I think that's the biggest key, is that so far our industry has really been an anathema it's had basic blockers because we invented our technology and the internet did their thing, and we really couldn't easily make use of the billions of dollars of R&D that's being put into that area. This move allows us to reach a consensus within our industry about how to leverage particular technologies to solve particular problems, and then just go learning from the best practices and maybe the difficulties or failures that others before us in the IT industry have had, in order to ultimately get that flexibility and to be able to ultimately monetize content on platforms that we absolutely cannot reach using conventional methods. And I think that's really a key part of this, is the business driver behind it.
Yes, the business driver, and I guess the bottom line on this too is, workflows become more flexible. They actually become a little more process oriented, so you can move them any direction you want. Go ahead, Rich.
I would say I think it's understandable we may have made a mistake. We focused on, we want to replace SDI, so we focused on transport. We call it IP. But the truth is, Brad said it exactly right. What we're really doing is changing our business methodology to go to an internet, style or based business. All those technologies that we all take for granted with our cell phones, our tablets, and our day-to-day lives is what we need to import into the broadcast space. And frankly, that's what Fox is trying to do.
Well, one last question, and is this scary? Or should it be scary?
Well, I don't think it should be scary. I think it is new technology, right? So the question was asked the other day, if you had the ability and the money, you're building a broadcast, so would you build IP today? And my answer is definitively yes. I'd make sure I had the right people. I'd make sure I verify the technology. That's what we're doing in the Joint Interop Lab, is verifying which products can actually get it done today. But so it's a new frontier, and there's probably more fear there than the status quo. But this is a technology that can be used and is being used successfully, not only on a booth here at IBC, but in broadcasts of the Premier League soccer and those types of events. So it is real and can be done. So challenging, yes. Scary, and under that interpretation, no.
just get to it. And certainly you've been tinkering this for a long time,
I
Rich.
really want to answer that. The answer is it's not scary at all. It's exciting. There's no
Yeah.
better time to be in the broadcast space trying to do technology and things like that. We're inventing the future.
Yeah.
What could be better than that?
Absolutely. All right, thank you very
Well
much. Yeah. Thank you very much, gentlemen.